I was speaking to teenagers on Skid Row. Do you know how many people are homeless in Los Angeles County on any given night? 70.
If you go to Skid Row, you're going to... Okay.
That's my...
Well, yeah, if you go to, like, where the poor's hang out, you're gonna see a couple of them, the unwashed masses, you know? But, I mean, I'm glad she was able to drop 78,000 right away. Yeah, 78,000 people living on the streets, and then he's like, what? I don't see him. We're not watching the whole thing. I just heard that around this mark, Williamson doesn't take any shit, and then completely stops listening to Bill Maher being fucking disgusting-ass Bill Maher, so... Gonna check it out for myself.
It always starts by a few people
considered
outrageous radicals by the status quo of their time, who have a better idea, who are so convicted, and conviction itself becomes a force multiplier, and invite and attract more and more people who get that this is the more evolutionary, sustainable idea. And then you reach that critical mass and things tip. And I believe what's happening right now, the status quo is unsustainable. Things are going to break one way or the other. They're either going to break in the direction of greater democracy and justice, or they are going to break in the direction of dystopia and authoritarianism. That's why we cannot put against Donald Trump or any of those guys in 2024 someone who does not deliver more for the people. Franklin Roosevelt said that we wouldn't have to worry about a fascist takeover as long as democracy delivered on its promises. Democracy is not delivering on its promises, Bill, and you can't expect people to be okay with that.
It's not delivering on its promises to all the people.
All the people, 20% of Americans live, you know, if you're in the top 20% of the American economy, you're doing pretty well. 20% are like on an island surrounded by a vast sea of economic despair. 70% of Americans experience chronic economic anxiety. 1 in 4 Americans live...
Not 70%. That's ridiculous.
That's the...
I hear you and the things you're saying, but I would like to raise nothing. Yeah.
The latest report. 1 in 4...
Report from who? I don't know what that means.
CNBC.
Okay, I believe... Well, look, I believe...
1 in 4 Americans live with medical debt. Half of our seniors live on $25,000.
Fucking wow, how detached has he become from reality? Where you hear what I thought was becoming very commonly understood things, right? Especially, like, you don't have to be suffering and, you know, below the poverty line to recognize what's happening. Like, when you see a headline, like in Canada, 1 in 4 Canadians is experiencing food insecurity. Yeah, I don't experience food insecurity, but I could read, and I read that headline, and that makes me sad, and I'm like, I don't want that. I would prefer that not to happen, right?
And less a year. People are rationing insulin in this country.
Yes, there is definitely an underclass. It's true. It's amazing.
There's an underclass. Yeah, I'm not saying the poors don't exist. There's a couple poors, you know, sprinkled around. I've seen them, you know.
That they are somehow able to take as much taxes as they do take, and still can't fucking solve that problem. They can't get it from either end. I don't understand that, because it's not like they don't take a great deal of taxes. What they do with it is a lot of wasted graft.
That is correct.
I mean, look what the COVID.
Wait, they tax too much? Are you talking just about regular, income taxes, personal taxes, property taxes?
Money. I did a long...
We talked about that actually on your show once.
Yeah.
So it didn't
I
even
did
go
a
to
long
the people.
piece on it. Like at least half of that COVID money, and we're talking in the trillions, was
didn't
just
even go to the people who needed it.
Stolen.
They could have just given $60 to every person. It would have done more for people and to stimulate the economy.
There is this underclass in this country. I agree. They're like 40% of the country, I think,
could not absorb a
like $1,000
$400
or something like that. Yes.
So think of the anxiety that you would feel all the time.
I agree.
To live with that. So we need to attack it on the level of cost. That's why we should have universal health care. That's why we should have tuition-free college and tech school. We should have those things which are given to the citizens of every other advanced democracy, including
57% of Americans can't afford a $1,000 emergency expense, says a new report to look at why Americans are saving less and how you can boost your emergency fund.
those, like you said, the hybrid economy with capitalism with socialist elements, so that you are taking care of
let's not pretend that we don't already have a lot of socialism.
Well, we have the police department is basically a socialist.
Social Security?
Yeah, so, which came from the Socialist Party.
Okay, Medicare.
The Federal Reserve Economic Well-Being of U.S. Households report released in May 2023 revealed that a hypothetical $400 expense would be a hardship for many adults. Fewer than 2 in 3 adults said they would have been able to cover the expense using cash, saving, or a credit card paid off the next statement, with the remainder saying they'd have to borrow or sell something to cover an unexpected $400 expense.
But it's not Medicare for all.
Unemployment?
It's Medicare. It's not Medicare for all.
Well, Obamacare is getting very close to Medicare for all.
We still have 85
Wait, yeah, what are you talking about, Bill?
million Americans who are underinsured or uninsured. And you have to be really like kind of buffered emotionally if you think 85 million people does not matter.
No, I hope I'm not the straw man who thinks 85 million.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you are, but I'm just saying when people say, oh, well, that doesn't matter.
No, but I'm also saying that when you just ride around, you just see a country that does not look like it's falling apart.
Bill.
Like
That's the worst argument I think I've heard any pundit say in regard to this topic. Well, I don't see it. Yeah, you're saying all these numbers and things. I don't see it. Like when I drive around and I see my friends' mansions, they're clean, you know? And all the gardeners I think they're well taken care of or something. They smile when I walk by them. They want to take my coat. It's so nice. Like, I don't see what the problem is.
Eyes also matter. It matters what I read and what people tell me. It also matters that I just live in this world and I travel a lot and I'm out in the city a lot.
Well, yeah, most Americans can't afford to do that. If they can't afford a fucking $400 expense, how are they going to travel? How are they going to pay for a fucking plane ticket? I fly a lot. I'm going from one mansion to the other, and they're all very clean. They're nice. The staff is all very happy to see me every time. You know, they take my coat, they take my shoes off, they shine them before me. I mean, come on, they're shining shoes like never before.
And a lot of people are just living their best lives, and they're not all fucking rich. It's not all the top 20%. For all its horrible problems.
Poor people have fun too when they can. I'm sorry, that's not an exclusive domain of the super wealthy. I mean, if they're not on a fucking cruise ship, how are they living? No. Poor people can also want to go to the beach. Poor people can also want to have fun. Poor people want to get drunk just like you. Poor people want to do drugs just like everyone else. That doesn't mean that there aren't problems. Like, if you're being told just stone cold facts, you know, if Marianne right here is just like, these are the percentages, these are the numbers, this is they are exorbitantly high, and in many cases, rising. There is a problem. There is a wealth discrepancy that continues to grow. Do you not understand that? Well, I mean, I just don't see it.
This country still somehow... How we got through the pandemic and didn't go broke, I don't know. I mean, we probably will in the future. Maybe it's the inflation is part of that issue. But I just don't see a country where the people are just seething and unhappy when I'm out. And that has to count for something.
You know,
it doesn't. It's a personal anecdote of the lowest fucking order. Like, even then, it's kind of like, well, Bill Maher did say that in his day-to-day, he doesn't experience poor. He doesn't see it. He doesn't, like, so does it exist? Is poverty real if Bill Maher doesn't actually experience it?
Where I was last night, I was speaking to teenagers on Skid Row. Do you know how many people are homeless in Los Angeles County on any given night? 70.
If you go to Skid Row, you're going to... Okay.
That's my point.
Well, yeah, if you go to, like, where the poorest hang out, you're going to see a couple of them, the unwashed masses, you know? But, I mean, I'm glad she was able to drop 78,000 right away. Yeah, 78,000 people living on the streets. And then he's like, what? I don't see them.
Point, you say you drive around, but where do you drive around?
Okay.
You don't drive too many miles.
Of course, why would I go to Skid Row?
That's kind of my point. So you don't really, you say, I don't see any.
So you know what's wild, too, is that, like, now, in some places, you're not able to avoid this anymore. You can't just live in the white picket fucking fenced houses and the gated fucking, you know, communities. Like, if you live in a major city like I do in Vancouver, some of the richest parts of the city, the most expensive ones where the bougiest motherfuckers bougie out all day, they're right beside the downtown east side. The downtown east side is one of the highest concentrations of severe drug addiction and poverty in North America. So when you walk down the streets, all of a sudden you'll see it. And hey, guess what? The plan that has been enacted multiple times, including the new one by our mayor, just get a whole bunch of police to basically disrupt it, destroy it, take it down, and then where they go, that's their business. Clean up your room. Kind of thing. And then it's like, okay, well, it keeps growing though. This problem, there's a tent city, and then you smash it down, and then a bigger one opens up somewhere else, and then another one opens up simultaneously, and now there's 3 or 4. And like when I was working in the last election cycle this was a local election, because I'm really, really big on like volunteering for local elections, so I got to talk to a lot of people on the streets, even the well-to-do bougie ones, and they were all saying the same thing. It's gotten too bad. They're like, oh, it's just so much extreme poverty and drug addicts just running around. They never used to walk around this part of town. They never used to be here, you know, it never used to be that case. And they're not even coming from this like, you know, horrifying NIMBY fucking, you know, well-to-do, I don't want the poors around me. They're just living with the reality that, yeah, as things get worse, as rent becomes more expensive, as people get fucking priced out of these communities, more people get become homeless. That's how homeless people are created. When they have no homes, when they lose their homes, when they can't afford rent, when they can't keep defaulting on the rent over and over and over, and they have to leave, yeah, they now have no home.
Everybody going through that? That's right. Don't. You're not driving there.
And most people don't.
Visor 96. Wow, 2 years. Incredible. Jen Pepper, thank you as well. And Faye Molly, thank you so much for the subbies.
Yes. This invisibilized.
Yes.
Yes, I am referring to Annex-Experience syndrome, but it's one of those things. Yeah, that's what should be the name for it, actually. But yeah, you will start to see extreme poverty in your backyard if you live in a major city, and you'll start to see more and more of it as it continues to expand, as it becomes more inequality and more people who are homeless without their, like in the hyper-capitalist nations, worse in the US, it's the most hyper-capitalist, but you know, even Canada is still pretty hyper-capitalist. Why is this a problem? Why is it a country that is so wealthy? It boasts about its wealth all the time. You'll always get Justin Trudeau touting how rich Canada is and how amazing it is for investment opportunities. Same thing with fucking Joe Biden, who's running on an election campaign. If we have just fucking lowered unemployment, we've done everything as we're supposed to, the country is working great, we're the richest country in the world after all. Well then why is there so many fucking homeless people? Why is there so many poor people? Why? And even the working poor is something that's never factored into this, but that's a huge fucking section of that. Why is there so many working poor? People who are consistently saying, I can't make ends meet. I'm working fucking multiple jobs. I'm working app economy jobs. I just fucking doing what I can, but still, it's just too hard to live in this city or this town, or even this, what was once a cheap town outside of the city has now become a very expensive town because all the people who couldn't afford to live in the city are now spilling out into local towns to buy property and start families.
Field of suffering out there.
It's not more than an underclass. It's an underclass. It's a too large underclass that this country, that it's a scandal that we.
But he keeps talking about it like there's two things. There's like his community, the rich gated community, and then there's the underclass, you know, the lower class, the unwashed. Yeah. It's not as simple as that, as there being just extreme wealth and extreme poverty. Like I said, there's a huge factor of this of people who literally stay at friends' houses, live in their cars, or live in social housing because they are working poor. Why do we keep hearing stories about people who have full-time jobs and they are the ones that are actual like food stamp recipients? It's not like fucking, what's that fake red beard dude who sings about how like, everyone's eating the fudge, whatever that fucking song's about. Like, at the end of the day, a lot of those people who are getting welfare also have jobs, or they work multiple jobs, or they work fucking contract work that don't give them any benefits, don't give them healthcare, don't give them shit, or they have fucking children. And yes, it's very expensive to raise a family, even if you are working full-time or you do have a double income. If you're living in a city, forget about it. That's where you start to get these like what is it, like, I forget how they're being described, like the bougie poors or something. Like people are starting to talk about how you simply, even with like dual income, 2 people are making $80,000 a year, can't afford to live in certain cities because of the price of living in those cities. Like they're getting priced out at what are normally supposed to be incredibly high-end fucking incomes.
We certainly can't seem to address it.
No. It's not that we can't.
70% work time. Millions of full-time U.S. workers receive federal health care and food assistance. Millions of Americans who are working full-time jobs still rely on federal health care and food assistance programs because of the low wages, a bipartisan congressional watchdog says. A report from the Government Accountability Office found that 70% of adult workers participating in Medicaid, which provides health care to low-income Americans, and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program known as food stamps, are working full-time. Most work for 70% Holy shit. Most are working for private sector employers in places like restaurants, department stores, grocery stores, according to the report. The report was requested. By the way, the people whose like lives we all depended on so badly when the pandemic hit. Like then all of a sudden it's like, well, it's weird. You know, you'll get all these racists like RFK Jr. saying like, oh, it seems like there's got to be an explanation for the fact that there's a disproportionate amount of people who happen to be of different ethnic backgrounds who are suddenly getting sick and not getting sick. It has to be because there's bioengineered, and it has to be some big anti-Semitic conspiracy theory that explains it. No, motherfucker, that's not what it explains it. If you look at this, there's a disproportionate of people who happen to be racialized by society, who happen to be frontline workers, and they also happen to not have things like very, very good, healthcare, good, access to healthy foods or eating habits or all that kind of stuff. And yes, people who are disproportionately not with access to healthcare or who already have, core morbidities or, might have, conditions such as diabetes and stuff like that, they are suffering worse under a pandemic because as this disease is transferred to everybody, those who do not have the healthiest of immune systems or the greatest access to doctors are going to suffer more. And so it looks, if you just look at it on first glance, like maybe this is a racialized bioweapon if you have no idea what you're looking at, but you're looking at the way the society is fucking racist. That's it, and stratified. And you're looking at the intersection between both class and racial hierarchies that exist in a white supremacist capitalist society. That's what you're seeing. It's not a conspiracy theory. You know, this is not G.I. Joe. It's not fucking Metal Gear Solid. You're not seeing a bioengineered weapon that only specifically spares like Ashkenazi Jews, as Robert suggested. It's this. This is what you're seeing. The report was requested by Senator Bernie Sanders, of course, who said the findings show an urgent need to raise the federal minimum wage well above $7.25 that has been since the last hike. At a time when huge corporations like Walmart and McDonald's are making billions in profit and giving their CEO tens of millions of dollars a year, they're relying on corporate welfare from the federal government by paying their workers starvation wages. This is morally obscene. I completely agree.
Address it. It's that in order to address it, you have to challenge the corporate bottom line. You either can allow short-term profits for huge corporate entities, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, big agricultural companies, chemical companies, big food companies, gun manufacturers, big oil and defense contractors, to be this corporate aristocracy that get theirs first. You can either have that, or you can have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Yeah, it's not that we can't, Bill. It's that we, at this point in this aberrational chapter of our history, do not care. The
problem is that
our government is bought and sold by that corporate aristocracy.
Right, but government, I mean, from both sides, we were just saying, a lot of that money was Biden money that got stolen. They passed out COVID money. Okay, so whether it's Republicans or Democrats, it seems like they both waste a lot of money, take a lot of money they shouldn't have.
He's not disputing the fact that they're both corporate fucking backed entities. That was never a part of this. And fucking Bill's the one who's been like, oh yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of them. There's an underclass for sure, but like how many? She's like, in LA alone, 68,000 people sleep on the street. Okay, well, yeah, I'm not saying that there's not an underclass. I just haven't seen it, you know? And like, can we just talk about how government, doesn't matter whose it is for, they're wasting a bunch of money. They're wasting it on all these like fat cats and stuff like that.
And corporations obviously live like fat cats too.
Right.
And corporations very often don't pay the taxes that they should.
Yes, very often, Bill.
Yes, and they should not be able to park all that money overseas.
Ooh, I love that shade. Oh, that was nice. That was really good. You know, little paternal shade right there. Yes, Bill. Yes. That's what I've fucking been talking to you about for the last fucking hour, Bill. I know.
It's a traitorous thing to do.
I agree.
But what's the answer? Is to take that, I'm sympathetic to the idea that we take that money that you're parking in the Bahamas and not paying taxes on, and we give it to the government to fix these problems. But then I don't really trust the government to fix my problems, because they don't.
So, fuck it.
don't.
But
Because
if you
they
look
take
at something like universal health care, it's not.
That's great too, because then you get to have like a feelie. You know, it's the most performative thing ever. You get to be a rich person, and then you can have little feelies, and then you can use those feelies to be like, yeah, I mean, like, you know, I do sometimes when I'm in first class, I see someone getting on the plane and, you know, they've got like disabilities or something, and I feel like giving them my seat. I do. I don't. I never will. I don't want to be like, you know, in contact, close proximity to those fucking filthy vermin. But like, I feel, what if I was a good guy and I did that? Then maybe, you know, and that feeling's enough. Just, it's a warm, wonderful feeling.
Government run, it's government funded. It's just Medicare works. It's simply Medicare for all.
Yes, and Obamacare is a success. I mean, with all the times that the Republicans tried.
Such a weird way of putting it. It's like, it's certainly better than not having the Affordable Care Act at all. There are millions and millions of Americans who suddenly had more access to forms of insurance that wouldn't have had access to before. Like, there's no question about that. I'm not going to shit on the very act but it got watered down so much, right? Like fucking, who's that person who phased out completely, recently? His name escapes me. I'm acting like he did when he was giving that speech. He was, Mitch McConnell, thank you. Mitch McConnell did everything in his power, fucking Machiavellian Mitch, to dismantle every single thing that Obama was trying to push through with the Affordable Care Act in its initial phases.
To kill this, like
I know, I was Mitch McConnell out.
Wrote like 70 bills in Congress trying to kill this, and then they tried to kill it through the Supreme Court, and they did manage to take out.
But like, what's your point? Yes, that's bad. I agree. But when you say they, are you just referring to government, as in government is always just the exact same thing? It's just always like government bad, I think. Because government propose thing, then government water thing down. So yeah, right? Like, what was happening? What are you describing there? You were describing the Republican Party watering down, gutting, killing a bill as they've been doing since it was announced. Like, you know, Obama made the great mistake of being like, I should reach across the aisle and we should try to get, you know, bipartisan support on this. So let's have a meeting. We'll get Mitch McConnell in there and a whole bunch of other people. And then that meeting is where Mitch McConnell decided, I'm going to do everything in my power to destroy this man and his legacy.
One of the legs of it, and it still works.
But that's the point.
How bad
that's why if the Democratic Party would just do right by people, if the Democratic Party
didn't do right by passing Obamacare.
Obamacare was the best.
But you keep saying government, like this is like baby's first fucking political analysis. Well, I mean, government proposed thing, but then government took thing away, so government bad. Yeah, is this just your brain on libertarianism?
He could do, given that the insurance companies said you cannot go any further. You take the greed of the insurance companies out, and we could go all the way.
It's not the insurance companies; it's the pharmaceutical companies.
Well, the pharmaceutical.
Both are bad, Bill. It's not one good, one bad. Oh no, the insurance companies are fucking awesome. I love my insurance. Hell, I just sometimes go in for top-ups, you know?
Companies are why people are rationing insulin. It's why people are putting GoFundMe pages on the internet in order to pay for life-saving.
The profit of the insurance companies is not.
Well, I think you get a lot of
I read this recently. It was surprisingly low, lower than I thought. I mean, I'm sure that they're. I think they've been back before Obamacare. They were getting away with murder. They have been somewhat tamed, that industry. But I mean, the system itself is just so fucked up that you can get a knee operation at one hospital, and in the same city. Across town, it'll cost 5 times as much. There's no like sort of limit on gouging.
That's all the more that's why we should have Medicare for all. Actually, do you know that the top 5, the total medical.
But would that solve the gouging problem?
Yes, absolutely. Even right now, the government has given away its right to negotiate these prices.
Right.
But the government does have marching rights, which means that they could go in there if a drug is developed with even $1 of taxpayer money, which is basically all drugs. The government actually has the right to go in there and lower prices, but too often, including now, they do not exercise that right because they don't want to piss off the insurance companies and the pharmaceuticals. The top 5 pharmaceutical companies last year alone, their profit was $80 billion, and our medical debt is somewhere between 88 and 200 million.
So do you think it will make a difference in this election that not just you, but you and Bobby Kennedy, both are serious critics of the pharmaceutical industry?
of all the things to take from anything she just said, that's where you go with all of this. So what I'm hearing you say is that the guy who doesn't believe that HIV causes AIDS and thinks that COVID was bioengineered to spare Jewish people, that dude, the two of you are pretty much identical in all your policies and thoughts. That's what I'm kind of hearing.
Yes.
Skeptical. I mean, you know, I'm in the same camp of I don't agree with everything Bobby says. Don't know exactly where you are on this kind of stuff. I'm a medical skeptic of everything that includes vaccines. That doesn't make me, or I don't know, Bobby says he's not an anti-vaxxer. I think he's a little more anti than I am. But I want the decisions to be able to be my decisions, what I do with any medical intervention, including.
You have that. I'm sorry, did I miss something? Was there like a mass mandatory vaccination program in America? Man, how times have changed, eh? Do you remember the good old days when they're like, hey, there's this thing, polio. We should probably do a mass vaccination thing. Because why? Well, we can get rid of polio. And everyone's like, okay, well, we'll go do our duty, get involved in this. And now it's like, oh, this is an apartheid state. Oh, two-tier system. I can't go enjoy my chicken nuggies anymore. Can't go enjoy the chicken nuggies. This is basically the same thing as the Holocaust.
Including vaccines. I of course understand that they work. I'm not sure we are on the same page on that. I think he thinks.
Yeah, I know that is a good emote.
That the vaccines may have done more harm than good. My view is that because Americans are in such bad shape, they needed a vaccine. So it did save millions of lives. That's my view on that. I was not one of those Americans who wanted it or thought I needed it and resent having to had taken it.
What the fuck is wrong with you? I don't even understand what this line of posturing gets you to be able to be like, yeah, so I'm not against vaccines in theory. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. You know, I mean, fucking, does that word have any meaning anymore? I'm just someone who took the vaccine, and I wish I wasn't in this position where I have taken the vaccine, and I deeply regret taking it. It's like, so you basically don't care to learn anything about vaccines, or what this vaccine did for you, Bill, is what I'm understanding here.
Where are you on that?
Well, I certainly don't go as far as Bobby does. I think that the government was afraid to just be honest with the American people.
Okay, I'm gonna end it there because that was the section that everyone's going off about. But yeah, Marianne Williamson did an amazing job. I would say, as the internet doth say, she wrecked. Is that what it is? Wrecked? She wrecked him. She wrecked him pretty effectively. And he just looks clueless. Like, if you're just sitting there, like, how out of touch are you? And I'm not even saying that, like, I'm not one of those people, like, I think it's fucking ridiculous that some people assume that being a lefty means that you have to live in abject poverty. No, I don't want there to be nothing but poor lefties walking around in burlap sacks to prove how lefty they are. That's not what any of this has to say. There is successful and wealthy leftists out there who use their platforms responsibly to be able to speak and convey a whole bunch of stuff to other people that wouldn't be given that platform otherwise if they weren't as famous as they are. Including someone like Bernie Sanders, for example. But, like, who are you to hear all this information being told to you very, very clearly, by the way? She's not, like, he can go off about all the anecdotes he wants, and then right away she's like, okay, so that number is actually like 70,000 people living on the street in this one city alone. That's bad, right? And so then you can't keep doing this, like, of course there's an underclass. You know, I'm not saying that I've seen, you know, a poor person before. I think my driver, I assume, is one of those. But, like, yeah. But in terms of just, like, broadly speaking, is everything wrong or bad, or is there, like, are we headed in the wrong direction? No. It's like, I don't see that. Not when I go out and I party, you know, fucking the caviar is served on the same plates. Nothing changed. Yeah.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. This show is produced by amazing people like you, and if you want to help us out, please consider donating over at patreon.com/theserfs. The show is made possible thanks to Amazing Fletch, Anna Loves Riley, Ariane McCarthy, Cheryl Alvarez, Doug Cady, Everything Important, Hagbard Celine, Laminia Panza, Matthew Scarborough, Multimondi, Omni, Peanut Butter Blondie, Political Pappy, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Ruby K, Sir Nickus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian Demo, Tech Tink, Trevbot EXE, Words Greenwood, and not to mention all of the amazing and fabulous people you now see before you.